When the two of you have sort of metaphorically become one, who is there to have sex with? Fire needs air. Passion needs space.
I'm Jo Sarah, and welcome to the Umaversity Podcast, empowering you with real talk, real education, and real stories from our experts and our tribe of women who've got your back.
Yes.
Our mission? Educating 1 billion women worldwide on their mental, body, and sexual wellness journey.
Yeah.
So join me, learn something new as we build our badass tribe. Welcome to the Umaversity Podcast. Today I'm joined by Jolien Spoelstra, who is a healthcare psychologist, an EMDR therapist, sexologist, and an expert in sexuality and relationships. And Jolien has worked with a lot of mental health institutions and writes about love and sex, and also published her first book, Zinderend Leven. And today we're going to dive into everything about non-monogamy and monogamy, about sexual issues in relationships and long-term relationships, and how to keep the sex fulfilling. So welcome, Jolien.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you to join us because every time I talk to you, you teach me something new about relationships and sex and monogamy. And so you had to be on the Umaversity Podcast.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So the first question I have right away is, are sexual problems always just about sex, or is there something else happening?
I would actually say that most of the time sexual problems have a deeper layer to them. Of course, there's the exceptions as well, where it's just about sex, but most of the time it's not just about sex, it's about something else as well. And you can think, for instance, about insecurities that people have, or trouble with letting go, losing control, being quite judgmental about themselves. So lack of self-compassion, for instance. Some more psychological issues that are at play there. And a lot of times as a sexologist and relational therapist, what I see, of course, is the relational dynamics that kicks in when sexual problems arise.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be happening besides sex in a relationship. So it's not always just sex.
No. Definitely.
So can we unpack this?
Of course.
There's so much I want to ask you. Yeah, where do we start when you notice, okay, the sex isn't where I want it to be? Where do you start searching for answers?
Okay. So as a sexologist, I normally look at 3 factors: the biological, psychological, and sociological factors. And within the sociological factors are also the relational factors. So you can look at what is going on biologically, and then you can think about hormones, for instance, pregnancy, childbirth, perimenopause, menopause, all these topics. Old age, but also disease and medication, substance use or abuse. And all these things can play a role and have an effect on how your sexual system works and how it responds to sexual stimuli. But as I said, it's biological factors. There's psychological factors as well. So when you experience a lot of stress in your life, which we all do at certain points, or when you have insecurities or anxieties, when there's trauma at play or depression, all these things can play a role as well. And then we have the sociological factors. And then you can think of what are the things that I learned about sexuality growing up. What did society teach me? What are the values that were given to me? And which ones of these do I want to keep? Which ones are mine? Which ones are from someone else? Which ones do I need to let go? And as I said, within the social factors are also the relational factors. And then you can think of, are we too close to each other? Is there not enough space between us anymore? No more excitement, no more unknown tension in the good sense of the word? Or are we too far apart? Is there no more connection between the two of us? And what are the consequences of that? How does that influence how I look at you and whether I want to be open to you or vulnerable with you or play with you, right? So all these factors come into play.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So it makes your job also very interesting.
Very interesting, yeah. And you can see when there's 2 people in a relationship, of course, all these factors don't come into play with one person, but with both people. So everything changes constantly throughout a long-term relationship because you change. You're not the same person that you were at the start of the relationship. You're not even the same person that you were this morning, right? Yeah. So you change constantly, your partner changes, and your situation, your relationship, environment that you're in it all changes. So you're constantly reinventing yourself and need to check in with your partner and with yourself to keep that all in sync.
Yeah, that's really something to think about when you're like, okay, because a lot of the times we just thought, okay, if this is the problem, then that's what you fix. Yeah, we're not really taught to look at where does it come from, why is this there? And so you said something before about sometimes there is too much distance or too little distance between you and your partner. Can you explain that a little bit more? When do you know when there's too little distance, and that's why the sex isn't as sparky?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's say.
So Esther Perel wrote a whole book about this called Mating in Captivity. Maybe you've heard of it. She did a TED talk about it as well and became very famous with that. And what she says is that when two people meet each other for the first time, they're two different entities. They're two different people. And there's a lot to discover there. There's a lot unknown and uncertain. And this unknown and uncertainty causes tension. And most of the time in the good sense of the word. And with tension also comes sexual tension. When people start to really get involved and know each other a bit better, this unknown and uncertainty starts to change into, I know what you're about to say, I can finish your sentences because we know each other.
Yeah.
And we're good with each other, and I know what you're like, and there's no uncertainty anymore, and there's no surprise anymore, right? And this is a very nice feeling because you don't have to be on your toes all the time, right? Yeah. But the downside of it is that there's less tension and also less sexual tension, right? When the two of you have sort of metaphorically become one, who is there to have sex with?
Yes.
Right?
Wow, I've never seen it like that.
So Esther Perel says it very clearly when she says fire needs air. So that's one of her very famous quotes. Fire needs air, meaning passion needs space. It needs the distance between two people, right? So, but when there's too much distance, people don't feel connected. And then that doesn't work either.
Yeah. And when do you know when there's too much distance?
Well, that's when people don't feel connected. They don't feel in sync with the other person. And most of the time, either it doesn't feel safe then, where too much connection can feel very safe and very relaxed and calm, secure. When there's too much distance, a lot of times people don't feel that security at all. They feel they have to be on their toes all the time because they don't feel that the other person's got their back or they got their back. There's not real friendship or connection there.
Is it also about trust?
Yes, it's a lot about trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can either be I'm a bit on my toes when I'm around you, or it can either be I'm just closed off or you are closed off and we don't share that much with each other. And then why would you want to have sex with that person if there's no real connection there?
Yeah. So it's not only about the physical distance, it's about the mental, the psychological distance, and also maybe the sexual distance as well.
It really doesn't have to be about the physical distance because people can have long distance relationships and still be very attracted to each other and crave being with each other and fantasize about being with each other. So the long distance relationships, that is not about being not connected. People can be very connected when they're not in the same room, and they can be very disconnected sitting right next to each other on the couch.
Yeah. That's so true. And so what are a few things that you can do, or at least let's hone it down to one. So what is one thing that you can do if you're too close to your partner and you want to ignite that fire with air, so give that more space? And what is one thing that you can do when you're too far from your partner and you want to keep that fire going?
So when you're too close to your partner, what you can do is really start to develop your own personality, develop your own interests, and work more towards those things, right? Do more stuff apart. What I see a lot is that people spend a lot of time together. They feel very close and comfortable with each other, but they sometimes neglect their own person, their own life, their own social structure, their own interest, etc., right?
Yeah.
And by doing that, what happens is they sometimes get more afraid of losing the other person because they're so involved with the other person, and that other person takes up so much room in their life that if that person were to leave, that would leave a big gap in their life, right? So they spend even more time with that other person. And
so it's a continuous cycle then.
Yeah.
Because you're afraid of losing someone, you're constantly just wanting to spend all your time.
Yes.
But actually what you need to do is spend time with yourself.
Yes, and with other people.
Yeah.
Get your social network on par. Spend more time there. So you don't have to be with that one person. Because if you lose that one person, you'd be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be heartbroken, but okay. But you choose to be with that person, not because you're afraid of losing that person, right?
Yeah, yeah. And how would you do it if it's you're too far from your partner?
When there's a lack of connection, people really need to talk about this and address this. Because what happens is, so in every long-term relation, people change, as I said. People might even lose each other a bit, and sometimes stuff happens that cause grief or resentment even between partners, and that causes them to close off. Like if you feel that that person isn't there for me and he or she hasn't been there for a while now, that causes a lot of loneliness within a relationship, and people close off at some point. They just check out, and then there's no connection anymore. And what you need to do is really address these things that caused the resentment, because John Gottman did some research. He's a relational therapist from the States, and he said resentment is the best predictor of people splitting up in the end.
Really?
So once this resentment starts to build up, you're really going down a path that you don't want to go down. And you either address it or seek therapy, for instance, with a relational therapist, or there's a good chance that that relationship will end at some point.
Wow. Learning so many things already. So that basically these are really good tools to try out.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very important to always have your own world next to your partner.
Yeah.
But also to include your partner once in a while in your world, you know? Yeah, that's very, very powerful. And so why does sexual desire change in long-term relationships in such a way that sometimes the sex isn't there anymore, or there's like the desire especially isn't there? So it just becomes a transactional thing, or it doesn't happen at all. Why is that the case, and what can you do about it?
What I see in my practice, I see a lot of couples, and I look at it also from a relational therapist point of view. What I see a lot is that relational dynamics kick in once sexual problems arise. So most of the time, or one of the most heard complaints that people come and see me about is when there's a difference in sexual desire. And the first thing I tell them is that there was always a difference, and there will always be a difference, because these two people in front of me are two different people, right? So you never want the same thing just as much at the same time, whether it's like a peanut butter sandwich or watching a Netflix show or sex.
But where do we get this notion from that we should have the same sexual desire?
Well, I don't know. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Of course you don't want it.
But before you just said it, I was always just believing, oh, yeah, that person doesn't have the same sexual desire as I do. Is it going to work?
Uh-huh.
But if you just accept the fact that it will never be the same.
It will never be the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a load off my shoulder. In general, like I hope it is also a load of your shoulder, but whoa, that's...
Yeah. So it will never be the same, and it waxes and wanes throughout your life, so also throughout your relationship, and that's a completely normal thing. So sometimes the difference is a bit smaller, sometimes the difference is a bit bigger, right? And once it gets a bit bigger, this of course can happen through all these things, factors that I just mentioned, like biological, psychological, sociological factors. All these things have an influence on your sexual desire, sexual pleasure, and they all change your sexuality. Because of that, it waxes and wanes, and you notice the difference when the difference gets larger, right? And then what happens is there's always a high desire partner and a low desire partner, because relative, when you look at it like in a relation, these two people, they never want the same thing at the same time just as much, right? So there's always one who wants it a bit more than the other person. Doesn't mean their sexual desire is low or high, but it's just relative to the other person, right? So there's always a low desire partner and a high desire partner. And what happens is that the high desire partner is waiting for an opportunity to initiate. That person starts to initiate, and the other person, low desire partner, might not want it at that moment, which is totally normal. So what they do is they have to say no. But when the high desire partner hears no all the time, at some point they will get a bit frustrated or irritated or disappointed, and they might let that know, right? And then the low desire partner will start to feel pressure. And then what happens is that the low desire is going to try and manage expectations, where normally they would maybe place a hand on the knee or on the butt, or maybe kiss a bit in the neck, or send a text that is a bit sexy or whatever. They might not do that anymore, because when they do something like that, even though they would like to do it themselves, they would know that the high desire partner is maybe thinking, maybe there's
an expectation there.
Maybe we could have sex this evening, for instance. And then they might move towards that. And then the low desire would have to say no again, for instance, right? Because they were not initiating sex. They were just initiating some physical contact and some closeness. So what happens is when they do put a hand on the knee, the high desire partner is like, oh, finally, this is my chance. And then jumps right at it. And it's way too much for the low desire partner, and they move even further back, right? So what you see is the high desire partner keeps looking out for these signals constantly and then moving towards it immediately, while the low desire is just keeping all these signals away. What I normally describe it as like an ice age. What happens is like there's no more like physical interaction between these people. They like move away from each other as if you could see it like a cat. If you want to stroke a cat, and they don't want to be stroked, they move their back, they arch their back like that, and you just don't touch them, right? You can't touch them. And it's a bit like that. So one person seeks contact and the other person just keeps moving away, right? And everything becomes like a minefield, that everything becomes like with pressure, and there's a psychological or emotional load to it. Everything feels heavy. So what I hear a lot is this low desire partner who keeps managing expectations. And what they do, for instance, also is like you go to a restaurant and they have a nice night out, and driving home, the low desire partner would already be like, oh, I have to get up really early next morning. I can't wait to be in my bed. I'm so tired, so the other person won't expect anything, right? So all the cues, all the intimacy slowly starts to disappear from the relationship. And now here comes the secret ingredient.
Okay, tell me, I'm really curious.
So here comes the secret ingredient, is that Emily Nagoski wrote this book called Come As You Are. And in that she says that most women have responsive desire. They get sexual desire in response of sexual stimuli. So they don't move towards sex wanting sex, but when they move towards sex, they start to want it. Do you get that?
No.
Okay. So the common idea is that you are in the mood and then you move towards sex, right? With most women, it doesn't work like that. It works the other way around. They move towards intimacy and sex, and by the caressing, the stroking, the kissing, the massaging or showering or whatever, they start to get in the mood, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I follow.
So when all the cues, sexual cues, have left the relationship, and there's no stroking, no kissing, no hand on the knee, no sexy text, nothing, women never get in the mood, right? And they can just go from day to day not being in the mood, not even thinking about it. And this is when the relational dynamics take over, because the sexual problem might have started with getting a baby, or troubles at work, or being ill, having UTIs all the time.
Mm-hmm. Or pain.
Yeah. They might have started with that. But because of the relational dynamics, what happens is the original cause of the sexual problems, or the lack of sexual interest, might be solved like months ago, but they can't move towards each other anymore because there's no sexual stimuli anymore. And women with responsive desire need those cues.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. I have so many questions. So, for instance, the thing is it common in women to have this, or is it very different from men how we react to sex? Because, for instance, I have always had a higher libido than my partners, a higher sex drive or sexual desire. And I know a lot of of my female friends that have a higher desire than their male partners. So how does that work into all of this?
Sexual desire comes from three things. You have to have the right stimuli, either physical or mentally or both. The circumstances have to be right for you, and you have to have a positive expectation of the outcome. And when you have all of these three things, you will have sexual desire. You will want to move towards or engage towards sex. And people differ when it comes to stimuli, situations, and expectations, right? So you and your partners, they differ when it comes to that. Yeah.
So it does need to be all of the right tick boxes for that to be awakened. But that feels like a lot of things to do before the sex can ever go back. No, maybe not go back, but the sex can ever happen again. So how do you navigate that?
Okay, so a very important thing is to do some research for yourself to know what are the right stimuli for me, right? So what turns that switch on? What do I like? And so what kind of fantasies do I like, or what kind of touch do I like? And a lot of people don't know that. So you can really do some research there and explore it for yourself. And once you know it for yourself, you can share that with a partner or partners. And hopefully the other person or other people, they have done that research or exploring themselves as well, and they can share that with you. Of course, the situation as well. You can explore what kind of situations turn me on or off, right? Emily Nagoski, the one I mentioned before, she talks about gas pedal and the brakes. So when the stimuli aren't right for you or the situation isn't right for you, a lot of times it pushes the brakes. When it is right, it's the gas pedal, right? And you're going to move forward towards it. So you have to do a lot of research yourself. And if you know it, you can create these circumstances. But a lot of people feel that these situations shouldn't be created. They should just be there.
Yeah.
Right? It should just arise by itself spontaneously.
Yeah, just like snap fingers.
Yeah.
It should be there.
Even
though we expect this a lot from a lot of things in the world, but we're always disappointed it doesn't happen. And somehow we're taught that sex is very mechanical.
Is it?
But it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no.
For instance, I think porn really teaches you this. Like, oh, you should be, hard right now. You should be super horny, but it doesn't take into account all of the situations or all of the things that you said, the three elements of sexual desire. And there's no like narrative behind some, especially unethical porn movies. This is the situation, and that's why she's aroused, or this is why she's not aroused, or that's not what we're taught at all.
No.
We're just taught you should have sex, and you should have it as much as you can, because then you have a healthy relationship.
Oh, right. Okay.
This is what a lot of the narrative is, what I've seen and what I hear around me. So there's so much more to it than the mechanics of it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I would say it's not at all about the mechanics.
No.
For instance, with the circumstances, this differs so much among people. People are so different when it comes to this, because a lot of people, like for instance, when the window is open and your neighbors are barbecuing outside below your window, right? Some people might find that exhilarating because they might hear you, or you have to be quiet, and there's some sneaky thing about it, and it really turns them on. And other people, it's a complete turn off, right? So,
or even the smell of the smoke could, it could be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Or you're hungry and you're like, maybe I actually want to eat right now and not have sex. It could be all kinds of things.
Exactly. So it's really different for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know what it is. They just don't feel in the mood at that moment. But when you unpack that, people will come up with, well, the dog is right there and he's staring at me, or I've just cleaned my sheets. And for instance, with women, a lot of times I hear stuff like, but it's not my hair wash day. And what if it gets a bit dirty and I need to shower, but it all gets messed up. Like, this is not, it's planned for tomorrow.
And it doesn't fit in my schedule.
No. And men have no idea of all these things that are going on, why it's not a right moment at this time, right? Or what is holding them back. And a lot of women don't know either.
So to kind of recap, it's all about how to go into yourself and to find what are my sexual cues? what makes me respond to with sexual desire,
Mm-hmm.
and then communicate that.
Yes.
So it's the 2 steps, actually.
Yes.
And then, of course, listen to what your partner is telling you.
Yes, of course.
And that's how you can become more aware of each other's ups and downs. And
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the other person is going to have their preferences and situations that are good for them, right? So, and it's then the navigating the difference between that, because you can be sure that the other person wants something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So you can be sure that the other person wants something different.
Yeah.
So if you just accept that,
Mm-hmm.
then you won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm going to practice this one. I want to practice this one. It's a really good one.
Okay.
And also maybe towards yourself, that you might be different in different situations as well. Even though you thought, oh, I'm so excited for tonight. And then, evening comes and then you're like, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Or something happened and made you a little bit down. It's being compassionate.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like understanding what's going on, being willing to explore it, being willing to share it, and then try and understand each other. And also maybe try and see if you can just either sit with it, this is just what it is, or maybe see if you can help each other move to a different state or find the cues that work for you and then navigate the difference.
That's very beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what's one fact that you really want to debunk when it comes to relationships and sex?
Well, there's so many, but I think the one I hear most is that sexual desire should come spontaneously. And if it's not spontaneous, it's not real.
Okay, let's unpack this one too. Okay, it should not always be spontaneous. You mean scheduling sex?
As in, sexual desire was never spontaneous. A lot of people say it was spontaneous in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Why isn't it spontaneous now? And we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Yeah. And it just happened. It was just there.
We did it 8 times a day and we forgot about the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now it's gone. How can we get it back? And if we have to plan it, then that's not what I want. Then that's not spontaneous and then it's not real. Right? So I think there's a big misconception here about how sexual desire comes about. What I do sometimes is like this thought experiment with my clients when they're in my practice. I ask them like, so when the two of you met each other and you had your first dates, how did that go? Can you go back to that moment and sort of relive what was happening? And you ask them to close their eyes and they imagine how that went, right? And then they open their eyes and I say, I bet it went something like this. I bet you asked him out or you asked her out and you probably got some tickets for a theater show or made reservations in a restaurant and you cleaned your house, got rid of all the rubbish and all the clutter, and you put clean sheets on the bed and you put clean underwear on and you shaved some here and there or combed your hair or put some cologne on and a nice shirt and maybe put a bottle of champagne in the fridge, and then you send a text, I'm really looking forward to this evening, and you were fantasizing about how it would go, and then you'd pick her up or pick him up and you would go and you would show your best version of yourself, right? You would be interested and laughing, making jokes, asking questions, etc. And then you'd ask, want to go to my place, maybe have another cup of tea or some glass of wine or whatever. And then that person would come to your house and they would see like a clean house and a clean guy or clean girl and a nice bed, and it would smell nice, and you'd have a drink and you'd look in each other's eyes and you'd be like, wow, this is it. And magic would happen spontaneously.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then 10 years along the line, you're on the couch with your hair in a ponytail and glasses on, eating some leftovers from the day before, watching a Netflix show, just had an awful day at work and put your kids to bed, and then you're on the couch and you look at each other and you're like, I don't feel it. How did that happen? You see?
Yeah.
So you got to show up. You got to put the effort in.
Yeah.
It was never spontaneous to start with, and it will never be. Yeah? So you got to show up, put the effort in, talk about it, and make it happen. Make these circumstances that sexual desire can arise in, make them happen.
My mind is blown. Wow. Just this is something that everybody should hear. I hope that the whole world hears this, because this will take so much stress off so many couples, of so many people. And scheduling sex.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for that?
Yes. Don't do it.
Okay. Why not?
Okay, so I never advise to schedule sex, as in that would give pressure to what we have to do this evening, for instance, or this afternoon, is to have sex. It has to go a certain way and end a certain way, yeah? And only then it's successful. What I do advise people is to schedule time in which sex could arise. Yeah,
It was just quality time.
Quality time, and maybe getting the circumstances right in which you could feel sexual desire, right? And then finding the right sexual stimuli and looking those up, right? To like give each other a massage, or maybe shower together, maybe just kiss a bit on the couch, or just talk to each other, share what you've been through that day, make a nice stroll on the beach or whatever, and spend some quality time, show up, show your best self, be interested, be involved, be present, really connect. And then sexual desire might arise. And if not, that's fine too. You had a good time, right? And then it might arise the next time. And if not, you had a good time.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. Wow, I'm going to practice all of this. This
Okay.
is so fun. I feel like I have like a list to try out and to share with my partner. That's really nice. And so you mentioned it before a little bit. You said partners, because I know that a lot of the times people think, my desire is way higher than my partner's desire. And because of the other partner is having a higher desire than yours, or other way around, there's a feeling like, we don't have these tools that you just mentioned, so maybe you should look outside of the relationship. So let's talk about non-monogamy, and especially about the right forms of non-monogamy. So can you tell us about that? Because you have told me about this, and I want the whole world to know.
Okay. Would it be okay to talk about monogamy first?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think monogamy, what I tell my clients is that monogamy is really quite a modern invention. And non-monogamy is old-fashioned, really. That has been around forever. Because Homo sapiens, the way we are now, we've roamed this earth for like 250,000 years, approximately. Some say it's a bit longer, but approximately 250,000 years. And for the most part of that time, we lived as hunter-gatherers. And as hunter-gatherers, we lived in small groups and had very strong social bonds within these groups. So there was no emotional exclusivity. We had ties with all of these people. And then within these groups, we would probably find a partner that we would bond with for a relative short period of time, probably like 5 years or so, in which time we could maybe conceive a baby and get it through the first vulnerable years. And then we'd let each other go and maybe find another partner at some point and do the same thing with, right? And while we were having this bond with this other person, we would, men and women as well, would probably have sex with other people as well, right? So there was no sexual exclusivity either, right? And this all changed about 10,000 years ago. Then we went from hunter-gatherers to a farming society. And
the agricultural revolution.
Yeah, the agricultural revolution. And when that happened, everything changed. Yeah. So this is really quite recent, 10,000 years ago. Sounds like a long time ago, but it's really quite recent, right? In that, when you look at it history-wise. So 10,000 years ago, we went to a farming society, and we discovered that if we put some seeds in the ground, a year later, food will pop up. So what we do is we put a white little picket fence around it, and we build a house there, and we get a goat and some chickens, and that's where we stay. And with this farming society, what happened is that we got possession. And with possession came the question, who's going to inherit my stuff when I die? And when that question arose, something called paternity security became an issue. Paternity security is knowing whom the father is of children. And this was never an issue before, because the whole tribe was taking care of these kids. And there was no way to figure out who the father was, and it really wasn't that important, right? But when possession came, it became important to know whom the father was, because they would want to give their possession to their gene pool and give them an advantage, right? So how do you know whom the father is of a kid? is the only way is when the mother is monogamous, when they only have sex with that man for their entire life, right? And not with anyone else. And this is when monogamy became popular, right? So this is how monogamy became a thing. And this, as I said, is really quite a modern invention, only 10,000 years ago. And it changed a lot through these 10,000 years as well, because it used to be just an economic thing, as in, where does my stuff go? How do we know whose kids these are? There was still no emotional exclusivity. The male, female, a lot of the time didn't share that much. They would share stuff with their family members, with their brothers or sisters or neighbors, but not necessarily with each other. But they would be sexually exclusive, not emotionally, right? And monogamy used to mean one partner for your entire life. And this all changed 100 years ago to that monogamy and partner choice. It changed a lot, like 100 years ago, a couple of 100 years ago, because especially women got to make more choices for themselves. They could choose someone not out of economic reasons, but for instance, out of love. Right? Because I really genuinely like this guy. And when you look at the numbers, like only 1939, love was on the 5th place of why you would choose a partner. Place.
5th place.
Yeah. So there were lots of other reasons why you would be with someone, like economic reasons, religion, good background, good family, future opportunities, etc. Right? And in the 90s of the previous century, love became first place. So this is not that long ago, right? 35 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. It was first place. That is the reason to be with someone. Yeah. And then we're talking Western society, right? We're not talking rest of the world. When women got more choice and love became the reason to be with each other, we also got birth control, of course. Then a lot changed in how we perceive monogamy as well. Monogamy didn't mean one person for your entire life, but monogamy means one person at a time. And now, in the last couple of decades, I see it change a lot as well, as in people saying, I'm monogamous for a large part of this current relationship. Yeah. So we started out monogamous, but now we've opened it up. Or we started open, but we've decided to become monogamous, right? So it's not even like one person at a time, but it's like throughout the relationship, this can change, right? So monogamy has gone through a huge evolution as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Whoa. There's so much information in there. and I'm really wondering what the women were thinking with the agricultural revolution, when they were having sex with everybody and all of a sudden we had only sex with one person. And it feels also like they didn't have a lot of choice.
No.
Just because of their biology.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
And now we do, but now we're in the boxes of religion or culture a lot of the times. And so is there a way to check if you're like, do I want to be monogamous or not non-monogamy?
Yes. So our communal memory doesn't go that far back, that we can remember what happened like before 10,000 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So we were raised thinking that monogamy is the only way. But as I said, there were a whole bunch of different ways before monogamy came into play, right? Before monogamy became popular. And I'm thinking right now, with more choice, especially for women, with birth control, for instance, being able to separate sex from reproduction, people get more choice in what do I really want and what fits me best at this moment in my life. And people get the opportunity to sort of move back to where the human species came from, is in that we can have several relationships with different people, emotionally involved with more than one person, maybe even with a whole tribe, and not be sexually exclusive, etc., right? And we have the choice now to move towards that and maybe move a bit more towards where we actually come from.
Yeah.
Right? And then how do you know what fits you best? That is, of course, like the $1 million question that a lot of people struggle with these days, because we were raised thinking monogamy is the only thing that we have, the only format, and it has to be like that, otherwise you're broken or the relationship doesn't work, right? It really takes unpacking of your own beliefs and where they come from and which ones you want to keep for yourself and which ones you want to let go of, to see how do I really feel about this and what really fits me best, and how do I communicate that to someone? How do I become okay with that and communicate that to other people, right? I do have to say, though, when I look at the human species and all the diversity that we have, like, people are so different when you look at like what preferences do we have sexually, how do we like to live, what do we like to do in our leisure time, what do we like to eat or dress or whatever, right? There's so much difference and diversity between all these people. And I think if you look at what made us so successful as a species, like, is it the opposing thumb? Is it the fact that we developed speech and storytelling? Or is it the fact that we started to walk up straight and could cover longer distances? Of course, it's all of these, but it's also our diversity that made us so versatile that we could grow and develop in so many different circumstances. Yeah. And it's just mind-boggling to me that we think that when it comes to relationships, there's only one way, one right way, one natural way. Of course, that's crazy. It doesn't exist.
When history shows us it's been multiple ways.
And the human species is so diverse in everything else, and that's what makes us so successful. So of course there's no one size fits all.
No.
Yeah?
No. And so what should a person know before they explore non-monogamy?
What I see a lot in my practice, because I guide quite a lot of people on this path to non-monogamy, if that's what they want to explore, what I see a lot is that only once you enter this new arena, this new field, you will start to figure out what really works for you. So people have all these conversations with each other about how they look at it, where the boundaries of their relationship are, what their wishes are, their fantasies or whatever, and then they start somewhere, right? For instance, an open relationship or swinging or polyamory or whatever, right? But once they start to do that, they will really experience what it feels like, and then it all changes again, right? So these conversations are just a starting point, and you have to understand that it will evolve from there.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey, and you have to keep checking in with each other regularly to keep in sync with each other.
Yeah. I've seen that in my friends who are in non-monogamous relationships as well. And how they thought it would be was completely different to how they experienced it. And the ones that had a successful non-monogamous relationship were the ones that kept checking in with each other and kept talking about their feelings, and also having that mirror and looking at themselves. Because if you're not able to be self-reflective, a non-monogamous relationship is really not an option, because that you need that growth and you need that emotional intelligence as well. That's what I've seen. A lot of people just say, yeah, non-monogamy is just cheating. So what's the difference, according to you?
Cheating is doing something behind someone's back and breaking rules that you have implicitly or explicitly made with each other, right? And that can be sexually, but it can also be on other terrains, as in if you go to a casino and spend all your life savings and your partner's life savings, that's cheating too, right? You're breaking a boundary of that relationship. Or when you walk holding hands on a boulevard with someone else, then your partner, that could be considered cheating as well, because it's very intimate. And even if there's no sex there, that could be cheating as well, right? So cheating is not just sexual, it can be emotional as well. And it's about breaking trust and boundaries that were explicitly or implicitly made, right? And people feel in their gut whether they're cheating or not, because they know, if I tell my partner about this, I'm going to be in trouble, right? Yeah. They know that. They feel it.
Yeah.
So that's cheating. When you agree that you can open your relationship up and you don't have to be emotionally or sexually or both exclusive to each other, and you agree on that, then it's not cheating anymore, right? Then we call it consensual or ethical non-monogamy. When it's non-consensual non-monogamy, that's cheating.
That's cheating. Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Oh, we have a community question. Let's hear it.
I'm interested in non-monogamy, but my partner would only consider it if I were with a different gender than theirs. How can I approach this conversation and make sure my desires are taken seriously?
So, of course, you can never make sure that another person takes your desires seriously. The first thing, of course, is to take them seriously yourself. Yeah. And that should be the starting point. What I hear a lot is exactly this, is that, for instance, if it's male-female relationship, that a male would say you can explore sex with other people, but they can only be female. So it will be female-female exploration, right? Because when that happens, they might be able to provide something that I would never be able to provide. So I don't have to feel threatened by that. And it goes the other way around as well, right? So a lot of the time, it's like an insecurity that is at the base of this, of maybe if you were with another male, they could provide something that I could provide as well, but maybe they could do it better. And you would be wanting to be with them and not with me anymore, right? So a lot of the time it's an insecurity that needs to be unpacked there. And what could work is just take time to talk about this and really ask and be interested and compassionate about what's going on there and what is at play there. Sometimes also it's like a sexual thing, as in if you are with a same gender person, for instance, female-female, that kind of turns me on. And it doesn't turn me on if you are with a man. And then maybe if you were with another woman, you could come back to me and share your stories. And that would help our sex life as well. Yeah. So sometimes it's more along those lines. And there can be other reasons as well, of course.
What about, like, I've also heard this a lot. When another woman sleeps with another man, the male partner feels like, oh, he's gonna, like, almost like dirty her, or it's like the almost my wife or my partner is very virgin when she's with me, and she's almost like my possession. When I share her with another partner with the same gender, that's where she then becomes less valuable or something.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Okay, so I think I hear this quite a lot, especially from men.
Yeah.
Yeah?
This is a common thing. Definitely.
Yes. And I think this comes back from this monogamy thing, that when only way to know whether the kids are yours is when your female partner is monogamous and only has sex with you, right? And when that female had sex with someone else, they have sort of lost their value, because then you don't know. There's no more paternity security.
Yeah.
So if we go way back in history, a woman lost her value when she had sex with someone else. And this is where these ideas come from, that it is shameful or it is dirty, you're of less value, you're only pure if you are a virgin or haven't had sex with a lot of people, or if you don't have that much sexual desire to begin with, when sex is really not that's such a big deal for you, right? Yeah. And I'm the only one that can do it with you, right? When really sort of break that down, also for men, sometimes they can make this paradigm shift as well, where they can see that this really comes from old ideas, and I understand where they come from, but they're not really my ideas, right? I can look at it differently, knowing where they come from. It's all in our language and in our culture, and it's very implicit, but it's there. From when we're very small, you get like all these messages enter your brain, and they sort of contaminate it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sort of take a step back and look at it from objectively, like what's really going on here, and how do I feel about this, and do I believe these things?
Yeah.
And it can very well be that there's men that do still believe it when they know where it comes from and unpacked it and explored it, but it can also be that they change their minds, right?
But what to do with it as a woman if you do want to be with other people and also with other men, and your partner has a very belief around you being with other men based on older beliefs, I guess we'll say, and doesn't want to change it?
Well, then there's an impasse there, right? And of course, that happens a lot as well, because as I said, two people have different ideas, different boundaries, different wishes, different fantasies, etc. You never want the same thing just as much.
Yeah.
So if you want something different than your partner, of course, that's a given, but you'll have to see if you can navigate through that and find each other somewhere where there's common ground. And sometimes the difference is just too big and you can't find each other. And then the ball is back in your court, whether you then want to give up this wish or hope for the best later on in your relationship, maybe, or give up the relationship.
You gave, I think, all of us a lot to think about today. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom.
Welcome.
And all of your expertise and insights. And I love that we went from how sexual desire actually comes about and all of the things that you can look out when there are sexual issues in relationships to navigating non-monogamy and also the history of monogamy. It's been a beautiful learning journey in this episode. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we always do, we are going to close this episode with some powerful affirmations. So repeat after me. I'm allowed to explore my desires and communicate my needs openly. My sexual desire is mine and mine to own. Until next time, Umas. If you enjoyed this video, it would be amazing if you could give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to learn even more, join our community. Connect, share, and learn by joining our online and offline events. Be part of our WhatsApp community where you can meet other women and ask your burning questions to our experts, and by subscribing to our weekly educational newsletter. The links are all below, so feel welcome to join our Umaversity tribe.